Good afternoon, everyone. This video is going to be on basically the basics of getting started on Etsy. What you need to do if you're wanting to start a full-time or part-time Etsy business that will make you some money. How would you start? There's a lot more to it than just deciding, oh, I'm going to open up a business and throwing 5 or 6 things up on an Etsy page and sitting back and going, okay, well, where's my money? You can't start out just doing it that way. You kind of have to take some time to start with and decide what it is you want to sell. So the first thing you need to do is really go on to Etsy and take a look at what kind of things are selling. If there's something that you actually sell, you want to make sure that if it's something that is a good item to sell on Etsy, is there a market for it? There's a lot of things on Etsy that you can sell. It's basically, there's things that sell on there that I never would have thought sold. So I would always recommend, first of all, picking something that's an item that you like to make. What is something that you want to make that you feel like you're good at? You can pretty much find thousands of things that would sell that you probably wouldn't ever even have thought of, from vintage items, soaps, lotions, even hangers people make, vintage supplies, things like silverware, glassware, that kind of thing. You just go on there, and even if it's even a supply shop that supplies other sellers with things that they're going to need to make what they're selling. Supply shops typically, each item doesn't sell for so much, but it does, get a lot of sales. I was trying to get to the home page on Etsy. This is, let's see. I'm going to look under home and living items, that kind of thing. I mean, when you get under here and start looking at the categories, you can find so many different things that sell. Now, if you're a crafty type person, which you obviously it either really helps. You either need to really be into antiques or into making a certain kind of craft to get going on Etsy. If you've been selling things at local events and stuff, then that's a good way to get started. If you have, like, you're making vinyl items or t-shirts and things like that, that you're selling well at local events or reeves, then that's kind of how you get started most of the time, is doing those little local events where you actually start selling products. And you can go right online on Etsy and search for the type of product that you are selling to see, is there a market for it. Now, typically when you're doing that, if you find that there's say a 250 page search on there with several thousand listings, then typically, yep, there's a market for it. And it's something that you could probably sell. Even vintage items, if you're an antiquer or whatever, and you like to go out and just shop the local thrift stores and stuff, you can find a lot of really good items that will sell on Etsy under the vintage category. So that's a big selling thing. Or like, I make jewelry. There's a lot of different jewelry items, but the market is kind of saturated. But that doesn't mean that you will not sell well on Etsy. But what you do have to understand is that there's a lot more to it than just setting up a shop and putting just a few items in there. You have to know kind of where you're started, what you're going with, and what the market's going to be. When you look at these things, so like I'm looking here at clocks right now, if you go down here and there's, 250 pages and there's several thousand clocks in here, then when you start, it's going to take more than 10 to get you found in those searches. If you're looking for custom car decals, you do a search for that, there's 47,000 results. Well, what that tells us is there's a lot of shops selling, and there's a lot of shops selling multiple items. That's why you have 40,000 results or 47,000 results on there. But if you have your own niche, or if you really put forth the work to it, you can get found and get seen even in these high competition searches. So that's the first place to start, is pick your item. Now, some people try to sell multiple things on their shop, but that is not necessarily the best thing to do, because it's hard to sell 3 or 4 different kinds of items on your shop, because when you have multiple things in your shop, you have to treat each item you have as a separate shop. If you sell custom vinyl decals and you sell jewelry, it's basically like having 2 completely different shops. One item doesn't help the other item get seen well in searches. So you have to keep that in mind when you're doing your search, and really go that way. You have to keep in mind that you're going to have to treat each thing, as far as the amount of listings and things you have and how you market it, as completely separate. So that's why I recommend first step you do is pick a product, and pick a product that you like, something that you would do well with, and continue to sell on all the time, so you don't get bored with it. If it's not something that you typically like, you don't want to keep selling it. You want to make sure it's something you're going to like to make, and sorry about that you're going to stick with. I find that if you pick an item that you enjoy making, then you're more likely to stick with it. And if you try to stick with the one thing, then you can focus all your time, your effort, and your finances into making that one particular item the best it possibly can be, for getting your shop set up good and starting to get sales. If you're trying to sell, say, candles and soap and jewelry and something else, then you have too many things going on, and it's harder to get going because you don't have the finances to make everything the best that it can be. You want to make your items the best that they can possibly be to begin with. And so you want to be able to focus your items specifically on that. So if you're going to make jewelry like this, then you're going to focus just on the jewelry, or just on the soaps, or just on the lotions, because everything you make is going to be it's going to cost you to make it. It's going to cost you to buy the supplies. So that's why you pick one thing that you want, so that you're not spreading your finances too thin, and you can get enough products in your shop to begin with to help you get found. One of the future videos I'm going to do is after you pick that product, then what do you do? How are you going to make yourself seen and get noticed in these high searches. So the next thing you have to look at is, okay, where's my target market? What searches do I want to be found in? And what is it going to take for me to show up well in those searches? It could be that, you only need a handful of items, or if it's a really saturated market, you may need 200 items to get found well. So you need to know that when you start off. You need to know exactly what you're looking at having to do in order to make your shop relevant in those searches. So, and there's also the things of getting a business license. You're going to need to get your state sales and use tax license, your business license, a checking account. All of these things is more than just throwing up things as a hobby. Most states require you to have all of those kind of things. So you have to get all your ducks in a row to begin with, so it doesn't come up and just slap you in the face later and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to do a little more research on what you got to have. But don't let yourself get overwhelmed with it, because there's thousands of us that do it. So you can do it too. It's just a matter of finding out what you got to do and doing the research and getting it done. But that's your first step, is to pick the product you want to sell and research that product first to find out everything you got to have to make it. What's it going to take? What's my cost involved? If I'm going to do vinyl, how much is the machine to cut it going to be? How much is the vinyl going to be? Where's a good supplier to get it? So I'm not just going to Michael's, because that's the worst place to go. They're a little expensive, and there's other suppliers that you can get better cost with. You get that sales and use tax number, then you can get some wholesale accounts to get your supplies. All of those kinds of things come into play that really affect how well your business can go. So that's step number one. Pick the product and research it. So if you're getting ready to start that Etsy shop, that's your first thing you do. Then after that, you get in on Facebook and get in some good groups that are going to help you learn what you got to do to keep going. Excuse me. So that you can know right off the bat when you're starting your Etsy shop how to do it, where how to put up my listing, how do I set it up, how do I get myself seen, because there is a system to doing that so that you're not wasting a lot of time in it. So our next video is going to dive a little bit more into what you have to do to get seen after you pick your product. So get started and find a product that you think you really will enjoy making, because that's half of it. If you don't enjoy making it, you're going to quit before you get started good. So you find something you're good at so that you can start making this and make it the best it can be. You want to become the expert at doing whatever it is you intend to make. You want to be an expert at making it. So start there, and then we'll move on to another video that tells you how to do after you pick your product.